during phase 0 when there was no restriction. So we have taken the base as P naught, that is when there was no restriction, with respect to the phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. So as you can observe that in all the cities, Px by P naught is less than 1. For all phases, that is 1, 2, 3, except one city, that is Varanasi. So this indicates that the ambient air quality in terms of PM 2.5 was better during the first 3 phases of lockdown than during phase 0 when there was no restriction. So it clearly indicates that reduction in the particulate matter was the result of restrictions which subsequently relaxed during phase 4. Now, these are the time series plots of the different cities which we have selected in UP, as well as the next graph is of Delhi NCR. So in all this, the green lines indicate the phases that is being divided, and the yellow line indicates, that is the horizontal line that indicates the permissible limit of PM 2.5, and the the orange line indicates the 2020 concentrations, and the blue is indicating the concentrations of 2020. So in these plots, it is clearly observed that the concentrations of PM 2.5 were significantly lower in 2020 as compared to 2019 because of imposition of lockdown. And during phase 4, you can please see it clearly that the concentrations again goes higher because the restrictions have been lifted up. So again, the pollution level rises, and hence the concentrations of the PM 2.5 increases. So similarly is the case for the Delhi NCR, where in Delhi, Ghaziabad and Noida in 2019, as you can see, that the PM 2.5 concentrations are very much above from the permissible limits. Okay. And during 2020, it has a sharp decline that is of 5% to 10%. Now, this is a graph which is showing the percent reduction in the particle deposition in the trancobronchial region that is related to the pre-lockdown period, that is phase naught, that is phase 0. So with the help of the air quality health model, that is, MPPD, the percentage reduction of particle deposition in the trancobronchial region of the lungs due to the inhalation of respirable particles during the lockdown. So in this graph, you can see that the average PM 2.5 concentrations only exceeded during the pre-lockdown during the lockdown in Agra and Delhi. And particularly in phase 4, the particle deposition in the trancobronchial region increased, especially in Agra and Delhi. Now, another observation says that all cities except Varanasi exhibited similar results. That is, in phase 1 was the most effective for the reduction of trancobronchial particle deposition compared with the pre-lockdown concentration, because in phase 1, all things have closed. There is total restriction. That's why there is reduction in the trancobronchial particle deposition. And for Varanasi, phase 2 was most effective. That is the significant feature of the Varanasi. Because in Varanasi, mostly the PM 2.5 pollution is due to the rituals, is due to the, cremations and all. So during phase 2 only, these things have been restricted. And that's why the significant decline has been shown in the phase 2. Now, this figure shows the number of deaths prevented, that is per 1 lakh persons that is age more than 30 years due to decreased air pollution. So what we have do with the help of the air Q plus model, we can calculate the change in mortality, and we have taken the area of 1 lakh persons age that is more than 30 years. And then we can calculate that what is the change in the particle deposition inside the lungs, or very specific to the trancobronchial region inside the lungs. So we calculated deaths prevented based on the deaths during pre-lockdown period of 2020 from the AirQ Plus model. And in this figure, mortality prevention was maximized in all cities except Varanasi during phase 1, followed by 3 and 2. So as per particle deposition in the trancobronchial region, the reduction of particulate concentration reduced the number of mortalities, and hence phase 4 exhibited the least effective reduction in mortality. So thus if we do the analysis of all the phases combined, if we see the all phases combined, then which is the city that is has the maximum reduction in mortality, and that is the case of Ghaziabad. If we say if we combine all the phases, so as many as 8.01 deaths per 1 lakh persons were prevented in Ghaziabad during phase 1, and Varanasi showed largest mortality reduction in phase 2, and Delhi and Agra showed increased mortality in phase 4. So these are the significant observations that comes from the from this small study, that we observed a significant improvement in the PM 2.5 concentrations during the COVID-19 lockdown, with the greatest change at the start of lockdown in phase 1. And the Delhi NCR exhibited a decline of approximately 58.5% compared with 2019, and 4 NACs of Uttar Pradesh exhibited an average reduction of 44.6%. And if we are talking in terms of the health benefits, so health benefits were also highest during phase 1. So in that case, the Ghaziabad has the maximum reduction in mortality of about 8.01 per 1 lakh people during phase 1 compared with the pre-lockdown period. So compared with the pre-lockdown period, that is phase 0, particulate deposition in the trancobronchial region of the lungs was reduced by an average of 30.14%, with a corresponding mortality reduction of 29.85 per 1 lakh person. So this is the significant observations that has come out from this study. But the overall conclusion is what? For the future recommendations also. So reduction in air pollutants, particularly fine particulate matter, that is PM 2.5 during COVID-19 lockdown, because during COVID-19, 2 pollutants have the major role, that is PM 2.5 or PM in general and ozone. So not only provide health benefits in terms of reduction in particle deposition in lungs, but it also reduces the risk of mortality due to COVID infection and in climate change mitigation also. So lockdown periods serve as proxy for air pollution and climate change mitigation, and act as a base for policy makers in formulating science-based decisions, assessing risk, and issuing early warning, and contribute to raising general public awareness through education and communication. So these are some of the home messages, that apart from the future lockdowns that the policymakers will think in the future for some short lockdowns, so that it will relieve the air pollution reduction levels also. It will have a relief for the health benefits also. So apart from that, these are the other things, other sectors on which we should have the focus, the government should have the focus, and think towards improving the air quality. So if we are talking in terms of transport, then we should improve the inspection and maintenance system and accelerate the penetration of electric buses. So from this is the percentage, that is the reduction potential is 19%. This has been calculated from some model, from some previous studies, that they have calculated that if we have adopt these practices, then 19% reduction in the air pollution levels can become from the transport way. Then in industry, we shift all the industries in NCR to a natural gas and PNG expansion to be expedited areas with high pollution loads. And industries using existing fuels and must report real-time emissions to SPCVs. Then in residentials, all households in NCR should have LPG connections so that indoor air pollution can be controlled. And double cylinders should be provided with each PMUY connection. So with this type of connection, the power should be used very efficiently and the pollution is very less. If we are talking in terms of road dust control, then existing machines are there which can effectively utilize and manage the collected dust. In terms of thermal power stations, we should shift towards the biomass fuels and the other alternative fuels rather than the coal power based. And in terms of crop residue burning, create market for briquettes and local markets for biogas from straw. So I would like to acknowledge for this small study to my team, that is Dr. Anubha Goyal from IIT Kanpur, who took the lead for this research work, Dr. Saurabh Sonwani from Zakir Hussain College, Dr. Anuradha Shukla, Central Road Research Institute, and Dr. Anju Shrivastava from Hindu College, Delhi University for their valuable suggestions and research work. And my student team also, Ananya, Shubham, Akash, Supreme, and Subhanshi for their work. So thanks for the attention.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really interesting to know all these aspects that have not been explored so much, and very interesting to know so deeply into these aspects. Thanks so much, ma'am. And there is a query, ma'am.
Yeah.
Would you like to answer?
Yes.
What can be the parameters for air quality assessment for COVID-19 apart from PM 2.5?
Okay. If you are talking the other parameters related to the air pollution, then obviously other than the PM 2.5, ultra fine particulate matter, that is PM1 or less than PM1, then the ozone, not the stratospheric ozone, that is the tropospheric ozone, which, because that is the only pollutant which has been rising during the COVID-19 due to the biogenic VOCs emission. And if we are talking in terms of climate change, then there is one more pollutant, that is methane. Methane is rising due to the COVID-19, and it has a relation with the COVID-19 also, because what happened during COVID-19, a large number of hospital waste has been accumulated, and there is no biomedical waste disposable technologies are not there. So methane emission is very much high. So which leads to the climate change problem also, and which leads to the COVID-19, it will enhance the severity of infections also. So that's the other ways.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering the query. There is another one. With Goal Go Electric 2021, we are likely to replace LPG with induction stoves. What is your view on way forward?
If we are replacing the LPG, that's a good idea, because that fuel is a non-renewable resource. And if we are not using it efficiently, then not sustainably, then one day it will get finished. So it's a better way if we can shift over that. But keeping in mind that there will be specific facilities for them. The specific stations should be there so that the public will not suffer and they use it conveniently.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering the queries of our participants and for deliberating on such an important topic. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pallavi, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Amrina, for inviting me and giving me opportunity to share my experience on this platform. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure, ma'am. It's our pleasure. And I'm looking forward to work on the same topic. One of my students, she's working on COVID-19 and the anxiety disorders among the population. So I would definitely ask her to get in touch with you.
Yeah, and, sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving forward, we have the last speaker of the session today, Dr. Vinarsi. She's assistant professor, multivariate hydrological analysis and hydrological hazard, Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. Her specialization is in hydraulics engineering, hydroclimatological extremes, hydrologic hazards, multivariate hydrological analysis, detection and attribution of extreme events. Ma'am, it will be very interesting to hear you. Dr. Vinarsi.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes. Welcome to our workshop and thank you for joining in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Whether my screen is visible now, like it's in the slideshow.
Yes, it's
today.
visible, ma'am.
Just a minute. Thank you, everyone. Good evening to all. So I'm Vinarasi. I'm working as an assistant professor in IIT Roorkee. So today I'm going to talk about understanding and modeling of time-varying hydrological extremes. So this is the overview of today's presentation, today's talk. So first, first, the modeling of extreme events and their dynamic behavior is always an interesting and challenging topic. If we look into the global scale, uh, there were many studies have reported about the extreme events are increasing due to warming climate and is expected to increase in future also, right? In our country itself, we heard frequent major floods. For example, in Bombay, the flood level of 100-year return period came within the short duration of 20 years, short span of 20 years. Likewise, there was a major flood in Chennai during 2015 and followed by a severe water scarcity. This motivates the researchers to study more about the extremes. So this changes, whether this changes signifies the extreme events are becoming more frequent. Let's look into the regional scale in our country itself. So the average annual maximum rainfall intensity from 1901 to 2013 is shown here. So as we know, the heavy rainfall region in India are Western Ghats and Northeast region. The dry regions are Northwest and leeward part of Western Ghats. So when we look into the long-term trend for the past 113 years, shows intensifying rainfall in dry regions. Further, we looked into the various characteristics of extremes using peak over threshold. We have extracted different characteristics like wet day, wet spell, dry day, dry spell. So here, this result shows positive trend of wet day and spell and negative trend of dry day in dry regions. Whereas in wet regions, we could observe a negative trend in the wet day and spell and positive trend in the dry day and spell. So this shows the regional monsoon system is changing, like the wet regions are turning drier and the dry regions are turning wetter. Further, the similarity between the depth and the length of wet spell is compared using 8 different baskets. So here in this figure, you can see in the dry regions, you could see the majority of grids are showing a black color. That indicates a positive trend in the depth and no trend in length. That means the amount of rainfall is going to increase in this dry regions. Likewise, if you see in the northeast and the western Ghats, you can see the brown color. That is negative trend in both depth and length. So in the wet regions, again it is showing the depth and duration are decreasing. But if you see in entire India, the majority of grids is showing a green color. That green color represents no trend in depth and negative trend in length. That means the amount of rainfall which we are going to receive is going to be same, but the duration is going to decrease. So that shows like there will be a chance of short duration, high intensity rainfall. So further, the 50-year, the trend of 50-year written level is analyzed. So here I'm not showing in the grid wise in India, like I'm not showing the India picture. This figure shows the spatial variation of maximum intensity. You can see for the past half decade, the variation is so much. This figure shows the number of grids showing a positive trend and negative trend for 50-year moving window. For example, the first grid shows the 1901 to 50 years, that is 1950. Then the second point shows the 1911 to the next 50 years. So like that. So in the initial 50 years, you can see approximately there was 1,500 grids were showing a positive trend in the 50-year written level. Whereas the negative trend was showing in 1600. But over the decades, you can see the majority of grids were shifting towards the positive trend. So that shows the in majority of our part, we are going to receive a high intensity rainfall. So this changes signify, most of the studies are attributed this changes to a global warming. More details about this study you can refer to this paper, which is published in Journal of Geophysical Research in the year of 2015. So as I told, most of the time we attribute the warming climate through the long-term changes in the mean temperature. However, the regional scale assessment and mitigation needs an evaluation at daily time scale. So one of the important index to describe the diurnal variation is DTR, that is diurnal temperature range, which is the difference between the maximum and minimum temperature. And it is one of the important driving factor for most of the climatological process. For example, the change in DTR would increase the risk associated with drought, crop failure, human health, as well as the mortality rate. So we have analyzed in depth the DTR. So before analyzing, we looked into the literatures. So when we compare the trend of DTR globally and that of India, many studies reports a contradictory pattern. What does that means? Actually, all over the world, globally they have told that DTR, the range between the maximum and minimum, is decreasing due to the increase in the nighttime temperature. But in India, we could not able to see that kind of behavior. And almost all the studies, they have used a linear trend approach. This linear trend approaches are sensitive to the boundaries of the time series, and which fail to capture the multi-decadal variations. So hence we have used a multi-dimensional ensemble empirical mode decomposition method, which extracts the nonlinear and non-stationary component from the series. So using this method, we check the evaluation of maximum, minimum, and the diurnal temperature range over India. So the results show, and one more thing I want to highlight here, this DTR generally it influences the regional climate. We are almost feeling right, like in the North India, the daytime temperature, the difference between the daytime and the nighttime is varies a lot. But if you go to the south, that variation will be very less. Generally, in the humid regions, this range used to be very low. In the arid regions, the daytime and nighttime temperature difference will be high. So we try to check the influence of regional climate as well, along with the trend in the DTR. So this figure shows the evolution of DTR over the past six decades. So the first window shows for the 1951 to 1980, and then 1951 to 1990, 1951 to 2000, so on to like 1951 to 2010. So if you look into this figure, you can see the spatial extent of positive trend in the equatorial region gradually increases over the entire equatorial region as well as the northeastern regions, with an approximate increase of 0.25 degree Celsius per decade. Likewise, the significant negative trend over some part of north and west coast during the initial 30 years gradually extended towards the interior central and northern India during the subsequent decades. So when we looked into the maximum and minimum temperature, we could see the positive trend in DTR is consistent with the increase in the maximum temperature, that is daytime temperature. The negative trend in DTR is consistent with the increase in the minimum temperature, that is nighttime temperature. Further, we have extracted the representative grids in each climatic zones. And here, if you look into this first window, uh, this blue color indicates a arid region. So here you can observe that there was no trend or negligible trend in DTR. If you look into the maximum and minimum temperature, it's same, there is no trend. But if you see over the decades, there was a decreasing trend in the semi-arid region, in the arid regions. Again, I stress this point, arid regions generally we have a higher range of DTR. The DTR will be high, but here we are observing a decreasing trend. If you look into the maximum and minimum temperature, both are increasing, but the rate at which the rate of increase is higher in nighttime temperature than the daytime temperature. Whereas if you look into the humid regions, warm humid region, we can see increasing trend in the DTR. Here you can observe the maximum temperature is increasing at a higher rate than the minimum temperature. And this shows a contradictory pattern, like the humid regions were showing a positive trend, arid regions were showing a negative trend. The same kind of behavior we have observed in the precipitation as well. The wet regions are showing a drying behavior, means wet regions are changing into drier and the dry regions are changing into wetter. So this work was in depth actually. We have also quantified the shift and intensification of the annual cycle of diurnal variations. For the more details, you can refer to these papers. One is in scientific reports and another one in environmental research letters in the year of 2018. So the extreme characteristics of precipitation, the most important hydroclimatological variables, that is precipitation and temperature, have undergone long-term significant change over the past decades. And we also have observed that historical characteristics of climatic zones are slowly changing, right? So do these changes signifies non-stationarity? So now the question comes, what is non-stationarity? Let's look from a statistical point of view. So here we can see the probability distribution of the temperature. So this figure shows the probability distribution of temperature. Here you can see the right hand side shows a hot temperature extremes and the left hand side shows the cold temperature extremes. Generally, in the extreme event modeling, we fit the extreme event series into a probability distribution. Based on that, we estimate the return level. This follows a certain assumption called stationarity. That is, any probability distribution, if you take, there are statistical parameters. There are statistical properties. That is, the location. Based on this location, the shape, spread, the probability distribution varies, right? So according to the traditional methods, like there is a stationarity assumption that says the statistical properties like mean, the variance or skewness will not change with respect to time. That means this location or this spread will not change with respect to time. Suppose if it changes, what will happen? Let's look into that. Suppose if there is a negative shift in the mean, that is the location. If this is this, you can see this is a normal distribution. So if the mean is shifting towards negative side, like towards the left side, what's going to happen? Our cold extremes are going to increase. If that is going to shift a positive side, then the hot extremes are going to increase. If there is an increase in the variance, that is the spread is going to extend, then both the extremes are going to increase. Whatever it is, if there is a change in the statistical properties, that is going to affect the tail behavior, right? Those tail behaviors are the extremes, right? So what is non-stationarity? That is the change in the statistical parameter over time. So now the question comes, when we go into the non-stationary modeling, the question comes which parameter we have to change. Any distribution, if you take a mean, location, scale, location, scale, shape, there are parameters, right? So which one to be changed? So traditionally, what they do in the non-stationary method modeling, they check the trend in the time series. If there is a significant trend in the time series, then they go for a non-stationary model. Non-stationary model is nothing changing the parameter with respect to time or different covariates. We are not keeping the parameter as constant. Generally, in the traditional method, we keep the parameters as constant and compute the parameters using maximum likelihood approach. There are many parameter estimation techniques. So those techniques can be extended for this non-stationary methods also. So traditionally they go with the different combinations, like first they change the location parameter, then they change both location and shape parameter, then compute the different cases like different models, finding the, then finally we chose the best one based on the information criteria. If there is no trend, it will go to the stationary model. This is the basic thing, like traditionally, there are a lot of studies have done that. But one of the major drawback, the shortcoming of this approach is it considers only the trend in the time series. What about this kind of non-stationarity? Even this series also shows a non-stationarity, but there is no trend in the time series. If there is a variance, if the variance of the series is changing, that is also called a non-stationarity only, but that will not reflect as a trend in the time series. So we proposed a method called time sliding window approach. In this method, we detect the trend in the parameters instead of the original time series. This is very simple one. We like we divide the time series, the original extreme event series, into many realizations and come and fit the realizations into a probability distribution and estimate the parameters. Once we get the parameters, we construct a parameter series and then we detect the trend in the parameter series instead of the original time series. If there is a trend in the significant trend in the parameter series, then we consider that parameter as a changing parameter. Otherwise, that will be considered as a non-stationary one that will not change. Right. So this method we have compared with the traditional method using 4 different scenarios. We have created a 4 synthetic series. So the first series is there is no trend in any of the parameters. This series is developed using GEV distribution. So first series shows there is no trend in any of the parameters. In the second series, there is a trend in the location. There is no trend in scale or shape. And the third one, trend in the scale, there is no change in the location. And final one, trend in both the parameters. So when we apply the proposed methodology to this series, it could capture the variation of the location and scale parameter with which the series is generated. So the proposed method can able to capture the changing parameter. It can able to detect the signature of the non-stationarity. Further, we used this method and proposed a general framework for multivariate non-stationary modeling. This framework can be extended for any extreme event modeling. So first, we extract the series, the extreme event series. Then we have to find the best fit distribution. If there is more than one variate, we have to find the suitable coupler if you are going with a coupler modeling. Then we have to deduct the non-stationarity in the each variables as well as the correlation, the coupler parameter also, using the time sliding window approach. Then this is a two-stage Bayesian inference method I have used to detect the to compute the parameter. In the first stage, we estimate the marginal parameters. In the second stage, we estimate the coupler parameter. And then finally, we can compute the joint characteristics. So this generalized framework is employed for two different cases. One is non-stationary bivariate intensity duration model, and another one is non-stationary joint drought index. Not going in detail of each methods, but I'll show the results in brief. So in the first case, we have chosen 4 major cities in India, that is Bangalore, Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. The extreme intensity and the duration are extracted, and the best distributions were found. The signature of non-stationarity in the parameter are detected using the time sliding window approach. You can see for a Bangalore city, all the parameters are showing a change, whereas the the location and scale parameters are showing the increasing trend for intensity, and the duration is showing a decreasing trend in the location parameter. And throughout the analysis, we kept the shape parameter as constant because we cannot model the shape parameter uh, with short duration data, which needs a longer duration data. Further, we compared this proposed method with the traditional non-stationary modeling. So here you can see the Bombay and Madras shows a significant trend in the storm attributes both in intensity and duration. But whereas the traditional method would have treated this stations as stationary because there was no trend in the extreme event series, but we could capture the trend in the parameters. So further, this figure shows time varying return level. Time varying return level for 1 hour, 24-hour, and 48-hour duration for each cities. Here you can see there was an increasing trend in Bombay, Bangalore, and Madras. If you would have missed to model this non-stationary, we would have underestimated the extremes. In fact of Calcutta, there was a decreasing trend. The traditional stationary model would have overestimated this one. So here we can observe one more thing also. The changes are more predominant in short duration than the longer duration events. Regardless of whether it intensifies or subsides, the short duration events has undergone a major changes. Further, this model we have applied for 3 major historical floods which happened in Bangalore, Bombay, and Madras. We could see here the time varying return. This figure shows the time varying return period. So the return period of this major historical floods are going to decrease. That means this kind of events are going to be more frequent in future. So the details of this work you can refer to this paper, advances in water resource in the year of 2018. So next, we have also used this framework to develop non-stationary joint drought index. This index was able to capture the temporal dynamics of the time series. So when we extracted the drought characteristics using this index, we could see that the changes are exactly same with the pattern of the dry days over India. And we also observed the traditional SPA. Actually, this NJDI is developed from the our basic index, that is standardized precipitation index. So the traditional standardized precipitation index, the joint deficit index, overestimate the drought when frequent severe days events are clustered. Whenever the dry days are clustered, the stationary based index are overestimating the drought. If it is not a severe dry events, it is underestimating. But whereas the proposed index can able to capture the time varying nature of the meteorological drought. And we also observed a predominant drought in the October 1918 that is exactly matching the historical drought which occurred in 1918. So till now, I have told the non-stationary model means nothing. We are changing the parameter. But till now, we have seen I have changed the parameter with respect to time as a covariate. But we also have seen the uh, uh, previously we have seen the historical changes. We could see the precipitation is changing the same kind of behavior we could see in the DTR also. There are further analysis also we have done, and we have observed this kind of behavior in the teleconnections also. So instead of time as a covariate, if we use this physical covariates like the hydroclimatological variables as a covariate, then that will improve our predictions. That will improve, like, not the predictions, that will improve our non-stationary modeling for the better decisions. So we have also developed a framework for climate informed covariates based time varying intensity, duration, frequency. So this also applied for 4 major cities. Also, we also have compared. Actually, we don't have the short duration data for entire India, so we have taken this 4 cities, but we also have analyzed 24-hour duration for entire India to find the best covariate. So here, here I have shown only the Bombay city. Here we can see for each duration, this figure shows for each duration what are the best covariates. Okay, so here we can see the local processes or dominates in the short duration. That is, actually we use different covariates, that is local temperature anomaly, diurnal temperature range, global temperature anomaly, Enso-Modaki index, Indian Ocean dipole moment, and time as a covariate, and the stationary model. Then finally, we have chose the best model based on the information criteria. Here I am showing just a best model. So for example, for 1 hour duration, the best model is the combination of LTA, DTR, and GTA. So likewise, if you see for the local processes are dominant in the short duration, and the global processes are dominant in longer duration. So when we look into the broader picture in India, if you take if you see the best covariate model, we can see this G1 showing a purely temperature based indices, that is either LTA or DTR or GTA. The G2 is dominant temperature. This temperature indices are more dominant. So likewise, the G3 is dominant teleconnections, G4 is purely teleconnections based model, and M32 is time based model, and M0 is stationary based model. So if we see, majority of grid shows a G2, that is dominant temperature based indices. But whereas this is a best covariate model, but information criteria, if you know, like we take the minimum. There are many information criteria techniques, right? AIC, BIC, DIC. So here I have used DIC, that is deviance information criteria. So the minimum DIC value replicates the best covariate model, but at the same time less than 2, that is the minimum deviation between the best model. If it is less than 2 value, then that is called as a acceptable model. And we also compared this variations, that variations are not much in the results. So when we look into the acceptable covariate models, we could see the 62% of grid shows a purely temperature based indices, and 31% shows a dominant temperature based indices. That means overall 93% of grids were dominant in based on the temperature based indices. So if we are not having any other details of covariates also, we can model the extreme precipitation characteristics based on the temperature indices as a covariate. So this work is published recently in Journal of Hydrology. So concluding with this, so I want you to think about, I told this non-stationary model, we have a time varying design quantities, right? Time varying written level. How to bring for that to our design purpose. Okay, and how to bridge a gap between the statistical and the physically based model. Further, this method to be applied for flood frequency analysis, for agricultural and hydrological drought assessment. But most important is we have to link them with physically meaning covariates instead of time alone as a covariate. Actually, understanding the dynamics and identifying the causal factors are very crucial for any modeling. So without understanding the causal factors, like without identifying these causal factors, even if we if we model this extreme events, we cannot take any decision on that, because this changes with time. How it is going to change in future, we cannot go with the linear trend. So if we could able to relate with some causal factors, that will help us to make a better decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that engaging talk. And we are very blessed to have you with us today. And thank you so much, ma'am. We have a question there, ma'am. Why is the temperature rise over India only half the global mean?
What? Sorry, half the global
Why is the temperature rise over India only half the global mean? That's a question by Uma.
which one they are asking? It's a global mean, or they mean it? Just a minute. Can the audience can speak or can elaborate that question, please?
No, ma'am. She cannot speak as she is not the panelist.
I'm not
Why
able to
is
question.
the temperature rise over India only half the global mean?
I don't think that is the correct version that we have
Global mean.
understood.
No, I didn't mean anywhere that this is half of the global mean.
Absolutely, ma'am. So there may be some confusion. No problem, ma'am. Thank you so much for gracing us and enlightening everyone on this important topic, and that also fulfills the purpose of the workshop also. Ma'am, we would like to felicitate you with a virtual Tulsi plant, if you allow us, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Richa, Mr. Naresh is not. Okay.
Dr. Kartikeya Shukla is offering the virtual Tulsi plant to Dr. Vinayak. And that
There's one
concludes
more
this
question in
one.
the chat box, Richa. If we
Yes, if there are questions, I'll be happy.
There
to
is one more question, ma'am. Most natural processes are modeled as stationary Gaussian process. Is it climate change related rainfall is pushing non-stationary and covariance spatio-temporal analysis?
No, it's not only due to the climate change. There are actually. Can I read that question once?
Ma'am, in the
yes,
question
ma'am,
and
it's
answer
there
it
in the
is.
chat box.
There are no that there. Okay, most natural processes are modeled as stationary Gaussian process. Yes, most of our traditional methods, they use the stationary one only. Is it climate change related rainfall is pushing non-stationary in covariance? It's not, I cannot say the climate change is pushing us for the non-stationary. Whether it is climate change or not, I'm not going into the debate. But when we look into the historical data, historical time series, we could clearly see changes. There is a change in the parameters. There is a change in the mean, change in the variance. Then how we can model them by assuming it is not changing, right? When we have an evidence for change, we should go for a non-stationary model.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining the question so very well. Thank you so much. And we also thank from our heart for thank you for joining in, ma'am, today. To conclude the session, may I now invite Dr. Amrina Sardar Khan for the vote of thanks for the session.
Thank you, Richa. And on behalf of entire Amity University and Amity Institute of Environmental Sciences, I would take this opportunity to thank everyone. To begin, I would extend the thanks to the Almighty for this wonderful day of great learning, gaining knowledge, and being together in this 3-day workshop cum training program on
I think Dr. Amrina is facing some network issue at her end. It has been a very enriching session
His
today.
vision and leadership.
Yes, Dr. Amrina is back now.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, yes,
you're
yes.
now audible.
I think you're facing some net issue, Dr. Amrina.
Okay. So I am proposing the vote of thanks on behalf of the entire team, and I've started with thanking Honorable Founder President Sir Dr. Ashok Kumar Chauhan ji, Founder President Ratnan Balved Education Foundation and Amity Education Group for his continuous guidance and encouragement. It is his vision and leadership that has placed Amity University among the top universities in the world with a vision and mission of making India a superpower in education. I would extend our thanks to our dynamic Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, for inspiring us and be a role model for all the youngsters here. We extend our deep and sincere regards to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, for her incredible leadership and for steering all the way through success and accomplishment. I thank her for guiding us, supporting us throughout. We thank profusely to Dr. D.K. Bandyopadhyay, Chief Advisor, FPU and Chairman, Amity Law School and Mentor AIS, Dr. D.R. Patnaik, Secretary, IMS, Head, NWP IMD, New Delhi, for having graced us with their august presence despite their busy schedule and advising us throughout for the successful accomplishment of this 3-day workshop. Today's session was graced by the eminent speakers from various fields of climatology and meteorology who have shared their excellent work with participants. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Dr. D.R. Patnaik, Scientist F and Head, NWP IMD New Delhi, who enlightened us on the topic climate change and challenges of extreme weather prediction, the need of an hour. His deliberation focused on the weather prediction and how the data can be used for climate change research. We are very thankful to Dr. A.K. Lohani, Scientist G, Center for Flood Management Studies, Modeling and Forecasting of Flood Domain, Guwahati National Institute of Hydrology, who extensively discussed about geospatial information support decision system for water resources planning and management, and gave a very deep insight into various climatic models and the usage of decision support system for environmental protection, management, and future research. We would also extend our thanks to Dr. Gaurav Govardhan, Scientist C, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India, who discussed thoroughly about remote sensing application for air quality, early warning and decision support for air quality management in Delhi NCR. I also thank him to be with us at such a short notice and extend our best wishes to Dr. Sachin Gude sir, who is not with us because he had got some medical emergency at home. But in future, we'll definitely would get the opportunity to listen to him. So thank you, Govardhan sir, for being with us today. We are very thankful to Dr. Usha Meena, Associate Professor, School of Environmental Sciences, JNU, for enlightening us on how climate change has been found to have an impact on food safety. Increased climate variability, increased frequency and intensity of extreme events, as well as slow ongoing changes will affect the stability of food supply, access, and utilization. Thank you very much, ma'am. We extend our thanks to Dr. Madhuri Kumari, Professor, Amity School of Engineering and Technology, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, and a very good friend, for enlightening us on spatial decision support system, an effective tool for understanding human environment response. I must admit, your energy and passion for the geospatial technology is highly appreciable. Thank you for being there and a constant support to us at AIS. We would extend our thanks to Dr. Pallavi Saxena, Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Sciences, Hindu College, University of Delhi, Scientific Steering Committee member, ALIPS Advisory Board, APSI USA, and elaborating on health benefits due to reduction in fine particulate matter by using air quality health models during COVID-19 lockdown in India. She emphasized on the correlation between COVID-19, air pollution, and climate change. The significant observations she shared is worth knowing and to incorporate in the future climatic studies. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. We would extend our thanks to Dr. Vinarasi R., Assistant Professor, Multivariate Hydrological Analysis and Hydrological Hazard Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Roorkee, for explaining the hydrological extremes and how to monitor them in detail, and sharing her research work with us and leaving us with some questions to explore. It was really worth listening to you, ma'am. Thank you so much from the entire team of Amity Institute of Environmental Sciences. I would also express my thanks to our joint coordinators of AIS, Dr. Manju Rawat Ranjan and Dr. Renu Dhupa, for their constant support and allow us to execute our ideas and freedom of research and collaboration. I extend my gratitude to all our wonderful participants out there who have attended from distant places across the country. Your interest and active participation are a great encouragement to all of us. I also extend a warm thanks to Mr. Satish and Mr. Naresh for coordinating the session so well and for being the constant support. The Thanksgiving would not be completed if I do not convey my gratitude to the administration of Amity University for the efforts they have made for the efficient conduction of this event. I thank all the members of the organizing committee, teaching as well as non-teaching staff who have been involved in this particular exercise for the last many days. We would like to thank the esteemed delegates, the scientific community, colleagues, and research scholars for being an integral part of this event. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to admin IT team, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, for their support and being with us for all these 3 days, and before the commencement of the event and after the commencement or after the finish of any event, they're always there to help us in detail. I also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to the MC of this session, Dr. Richard Avinagar, for conducting the session so well. In the end, I once again thank the distinguished assemblage for their presence amongst us on this day. Thank you so much. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Dr. Amrina, for giving such a nice vote of thanks to all our speakers. We have placed the link for the assessment form. I hope everyone has filled it. If you need, the link will be shared again in the chat box. You can access it later also. But please fill in the assessment form latest by 5:30. Many thanks to the organizers, Dr. Renu, Dr. Amrina, Dr. Manju. Thank you for organizing such a wonderful experience of workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Amrina. Thank you, Dr. Richa, for conducting it so well
Thank you, ma'am.
throughout the day. Thank you.
Then can I close the session?
We will wait for 5 minutes. We will close at 5:20. So that the students, participants can submit the online assessment form.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Richa. Thank you, Dr. Amrina. Thank you, Manju
Thank you,
ma'am. Thanks to all of you. And also thanks to all the panelists and the participants who've been there for whole day from 10 to 5:30. So thanks to all, because this platform is an excellent platform where our knowledge is enhanced. And today's topic is climate modeling, remote sensing. Each and every panelist give their excellent presentation. So now I request all the participants, and tomorrow the event will start from 10. Thank you.